given where the game was at on Saturday night, there was cause for a little bit more anger in his coaching.
My information is they're screaming out for more of it. More overt coaching, harder coaching. Some stage you're going to have to take a stand. Otherwise you're going to get insipid performances like that.
I'd be hitting them between the eyes during the week. That's what drives performance. Showing them the vision, showing how pathetic they are. That's the hardness, that's the accountability that comes with being a coach now. It's not the rah, 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 rah.
They're getting what they deserve right now.
We've always admired Jack. I reckon it was about 5 years ago we inquired about Jack. He was such an important player to St Kilda at the time that it couldn't happen, but it's a very different circumstance now.
St Kilda has enormous empathy for what it is that he wants to do, and I think they'll reach some sort of a resolution, and I wouldn't expect that he's going to play at St Kilda next year.
The things he does and the psychological warfare that he can play with his opposition, his players, is incredibly brilliant.
Alistair Clarkson, has said he plays with his players' minds to the best, and they made a fun night out of it.
Changes have to be swift at Melbourne, and they're probably going to have to be deep.
I couldn't believe how lazy Melbourne's team was.
The question about him driving the Ferrari remains, and that is to be able to get this super talented group of players to play in the modern manner that's going to help you win.
Well, ultimately, the responsibility lies with the coach, mate.
Well, it's up to Eddie and the club. I'd imagine he'll be at our club next year. That's the first thing I've heard of it.
Would you say any truth in that, Eddie? What's going on?
Oh, we might exchange a few words like that, but I'm not going to say, oh, has someone offered you this?
Yeah.
It's none of my business, to be honest.
So some of the real overreactions in all of that.
This is going to be interesting. Next 10 minutes.
The Giants have missed their moment.
Yeah, real, but their moments this year is real. Is that the moment you're talking about?
You can frame it however you like.
Well, I think they've missed their moment this year. It's round 21 and they're falling apart. They're not playing good football and they're losing players to injury and they're not getting some of their big guns back. Yes, I don't think GWS can win it. But that's not to say they might not have another strong moment in the sun next year, Gerard. But and when a team is failing, stories just come out of everywhere, don't they? So it's an interesting spot for the Giants. I don't think they win the flag this year, but I don't know if their moment's gone. Gerard, question number 2. John WORSFOLD must change.
No, I'm in the overreaction camp here. So you can't be something that you're not. That's the framing for me. It's a question for Essendon is what John is what you need going forward. But you can't be a ranter and a raver if that's not authentic.
Fakeness.
And John is as passive on the bench during the mighty comebacks against the Giants and against the Suns and against Essendon as he was on Saturday night. The question on Saturday night was all that could be done, done? So to hear John talk is to hear him say that he's a believer in empowering the players and it's for the players to work that out. The question for Essendon is, does this group actually need its ears coached off? And that might be the long suit of somebody else. So once the body of work is presented in 2 weeks' time, where they either make it or they don't, I think that's the question Essendon has to ask. It's no good demanding John be different. Because he's not. He's got a long CV being this coach.
I think it's a bit, I'm going to say a cheap analysis. If you're going to critique John WORSFOLD, all the former players out there and those who have coached, critique his coaching. Tell us all who haven't played at your level or coached in the AFL, tell us what he's doing coaching. We can all see that he's impassive. You're not telling us anything that we don't know. Tell us how he's coaching. That's what I'd love to hear.
Richmond a better place than last year?
They'd want to be, Gerard. I've got a new answer. It's not real or overreaction.
They'd want to be.
They'd want to be. You know why? Because they didn't win it last year. So I'm not going to sit here and say, yeah, they're better or yeah, they're worse. Because last year I thought they were feeling fantastic and they got to the preliminary final and the Pies went psh. So all I will say is they'd want to be. Really curious, not curious, really interesting listening to Damien Hardwick, and it's often said by coaches, I think one of the Geelong teams, one of the Geelong premiership teams, never played again. It was the first time they played together, that 22, and it was the last time they played together. Now, Damien Hardwick coached the grand final, and people say this team will never play. They've brought in Sydney Stack, Shai Bolton, Who else is in the team? Well,
Solo.
Joel, Tom Lynch. There's a whole new team. There's a whole level of excitement. Are they better this year? I don't know. Footy will decide that, Jared. Melbourne has given up. Oh, that's a biggie.
Yeah, I don't. That's not it for me. So I'm an overreaction on that. There's a dispiriting element to the way that they're playing, and they have been ground down across a disappointing season. I don't think they've given up. I don't think they've got the luxury of that. They haven't been good enough all year, and they weren't good enough on Saturday, and I wouldn't expect them to be good enough much for the next 2 weeks. But deep change is coming, and they know that. So I guess you play with that burden. But I don't think they're losing those to them giving up at this stage. Eddie won't be a Crow next year.
Yeah, I think that's an overreaction. I think, I don't know who's writing it, and I'm not having a go at them personally, but the reports I've read that 6 clubs are chasing Eddie Betts. There it is there, Eddie Sunset, Gold Coast and Carlton. I'll tell you what, the Herald Sun asked Carlton 2 weeks ago whether Carlton are chasing Eddie Betts, and they said absolutely not. Now, either they lied, well, they'll say circumstances changed. I think Eddie's done, and that's really hard for me to say because we all love Eddie Betts. But I think if Eddie's got a contract at Adelaide, try and see it out. That's all. 6, Jared. Jack Stephen will be a cat.
I think that's an overreaction. That was a good little exchange last night, wasn't it? Chris said what he said, and Damien said, "You're running the price down."
Oh, yeah, that was good.
I really like that.
Yeah.
He's not a priority for them in the same way that he was last year. That much I would take a stab at. If they got him cheaply, he might end up there. I don't think Geelong will pay top dollar for him, and that's to say nothing of what Stephen's intentions are, or St Kilda either. But it's not as straight up and down, I think, as it's been depicted. It would have been last year,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I don't think the scenario is quite the same this year.